quite a bit of debris in the field, and debris is a big concern for the shuttle folks, and we want to keep an eye on it to make sure we don't have anything that's going to threaten the vehicle.
Now, Matt, you can see that this is this is camera Echo 4, E004. It's on the corner of the MLP deck, and very similar in field of view to the camera we just looked at. One of the things I like to point out is you can see one of the camera box enclosures we were talking about a little bit earlier on the left-hand side of the frame, right in front of the left SRB. Yeah,
and in fact, as we mentioned earlier in the piece, there's about 125 cameras or so, actually more, that document any given launch. And so, for brevity in this piece and to make it watchable, we had to have a lot of film hit the cutting room floor, and it was really difficult for me to cut a lot of it out because I loved all of the footage. I'm a fan of each and every camera, but that little camera there didn't get its day in the shade. That film of the booster had to. We'll have to have that for the director's cut in the future.
And just to give you a perspective, this camera originally captured this scene at 400 frames a second, so it's being played back at 24 frames. So it's about 1/16 of the speed that it was actually captured at, to give us a real-time view.
Now you can see here how absolutely gorgeous the day was, and as we mentioned earlier, it was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So in the film industry, they call this magic hour, and there's no question about it that this is one of the best times of day to take photographs of the shuttle. You have these rich colors and just a beautiful blue sky to sort of highlight all of this. So I find these pictures second to none in all of the launch imagery that's been taken. I should say that these boosters shed about 10,000 pounds of mass per second once they're lit up, and that's each, so it's 20,000 pounds combined. And you can really get the feel of that awesome magnitude by looking at these images. There you see a piece of debris on the right, sort of doing a ballet in slow motion there. This is some tie-down string from some water membranes under the SRBs that we'll talk about in a few moments. You know, teams go through this. This is engineering footage, and the teams go through this and identify everything they see in it.
Okay, this is camera Echo 36, and this camera is located on the fixed service structure at the 255-foot level. We refer to the fixed service structure as the FSS. It's a 16mm camera with a 16mm focal length lens. And the effective shutter speed is about a 1/1200th of a second, similar to some of the other ones that we've seen.
This is a long clip. In fact, this is probably the longest clip that I sort of chose for the production. There's a lot going on in here, but it looks a little boring for a while because those engines are on for a long time. So we're still at 400 frames a second here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So there you see the main engines igniting. You can see all of this water pouring into the flame trench. There's the big flash, the hydrogen and the oxygen lighting up. I should tell you that coming out of that external tank, inside there, the cryogenic propellants, liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen, 750 gallons a second of liquid hydrogen is pouring into that engine cluster, and 280 gallons a second of liquid oxygen. All of these things being combined instantly, effectively instantly, to create this fantastic combustion process, burning 3,000 pounds of propellants to turn it into water vapor every second. And it's almost invisible when it comes out of the engines. So the engines are turning on now, and you can sort of see them glowing against the water pouring into the flame trench. That water's there primarily to deaden the acoustic noise and to keep things cool. And you've got a good look at the belly of the orbiter here. One of the purposes of this camera is to look to see if we lose any tiles due to the shock of ignition of the solid rocket boosters. Now, you're going to see the boosters turn on in just a couple of minutes, and you see those red sort of ribbed surfaces there inside the flame trench. Those are actually membranes to hold water, and those will get burned away, and you'll sort of see that in the film when the boosters fire. There you see them right there, and there's water in there that's sort of getting jarred loose and turning into steam. And I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, that it prevents sort of a recirculation of the exhaust at liftoff. Probably again acoustic deadening noise. And there you see those boosters firing off. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, you see the umbilical falling backwards there. And then look at how the spatial main engines are punching through that water in the flame trench. That's really cool.
Yeah, it is quite a dramatic shot, and you can see the auto exposure control on the lens, as we've talked about on some of the other views, really helping to be able to see the detail on the SSMEs punching that hole, as well as looking at the plume from the SRB, and seeing the edge of the belly of the orbiter too.
See, the SSMEs aim a little bit off kilt there, and you can see them hitting the upper part of the mobile launch platform as they rise off. Amazing that they capture all that detail in the SRB plumes. It's good stuff. It's a fantastic clip. It really is.
This is a camera Echo 41. This is on the fixed surface structure on the FSS at the 255-foot level. It's a 10mm focal length on the 16mm camera. It's a really interesting view. Matt, you want to provide some more details about what we're seeing?
Yeah, you can see the boosters have already fired, and this big umbilical structure that you see swinging back, it's actually very massive. The plate on the end of that is about 1.5 by 3 foot square. You'll see a close-up of that in a little bit. That's the ground umbilical to hook up to the venting for the hydrogen tank, and it's got some nitrogen and helium purge lines and some instrumentation to go with it. Pretty complicated structure. You get a picture of that in a minute. If you look at the MLP, or the mobile launch platform, you'll see all the water coming out of the rainbirds under the launch pad. And again, our active exposure kicking in there and giving us a great shot of the plumes as the vehicle clears the tower. Look on the right, you can just see a tad of the SSME burning there, that little blue cone. Fantastic detail there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great shot. Echo 40 is one of my favorite shots, Matt, and this is on the fixed surface structure on the FSS at the 275-foot level, just a bit higher than the two previous views we saw. And this is really an incredible view of not only the orbiter, but the beautiful ocean, the late spring day in Florida, and very nice lighting on the tank, and as well as you'll see on the orbiter surfaces.
Yeah, it truly is magic hour on this. That orange tank, for those that aren't all that familiar with the shuttle, that's foam. That's insulating foam on the tank to keep the cryogenic propellants cold on the inside. Liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen are pretty chilly when they get into their liquid state. You can actually virtually look into the cockpit here. If you look carefully, you can see the ocean right through the window, just briefly there for a moment. Kind of fun. There's Discovery in all its glory. This engineering view is to look at any possible issues with the tiles or the thermal protection system on the vehicle. And look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. You can see some of the flakes of ice sort of tracking the vehicle as it moves upwards. Remember, as we mentioned earlier, that 3,000 pounds of water vapor a second is coming out of the space shuttle main engines on the back. It's pretty incredible, and it's virtually invisible. All right, this view is of a structure we call the GUP, which is the ground umbilical carrier plate, which attaches to the ground umbilical carrier assembly, sometimes called the GUCA. That plate is about 1.5 feet by 3 foot. It's a sizable plate. You don't really capture the scale in this, and you can see the vehicle is now lifted up and it's taking off. That umbilical peels back right at solid rocket booster separation or detonation.
And Matt, this is camera 33, and this is on the FSS. It's at the 235-foot level, and is using a fairly long focal length lens. It's and you can tell by the field of view that it is a long focal length lens, and it's 75 millimeters.
Now if you look, you can see the booster's kind of surging. It's not a continuous pass. It sort of pushes and then slows down a little bit. And what you're seeing there is the natural frequency of the booster thrust. I believe it was on the order of about 7 hertz, 7 cycles a second. And you can see that go by and hear the aft skirt of the boosters going by with a really nice tight shot of the exhaust.
This camera view is on the pad perimeter. It's located at camera site 3. It's about 1,273 feet away from the vehicle, and it's the first in a series of the 35mm cameras, which we'll be seeing in the upcoming sequences. There's a lens on here. The focal length is 500mm or so, and the effective exposure is a 1/450th of a second, and the camera's running at 180 frames per second.
Yeah, it's a beautiful shot, and this is going to, as Kevin said, it's first in the 35mm shots. They're a little better quality because they've just got more surface area to put an image on. You can see the SSMEs firing and all in nominal operation here. And as soon as they pull away from the pad, you'll see the left booster in the background, centered between the 2 service tail masts. And just a gorgeous shot right there, looking at the steam coming off the SSMEs. And this is a fantastic capture of what remains behind after the vehicle clears the towers. You have all of this water and steam being pushed around in this amazing hostile acoustic environment. I mean, look at what's going on there. This is all acoustic noise and shock coming from the boosters and the SSMEs.
Camera 63 is located on the pad perimeter. One of the camera sites. It's 1,270 feet from the vehicle, and it's using a 105mm lens. The camera's running at 180 frames a second, and that's pushing about 630 feet of film through the camera per minute. Quite a fast rate, especially for 35mm.
Yeah, you can see the sparkers going there, just getting ready to turn the main engines on. And in the background you'll see the water tower. That's where all that fresh water comes from to flood the pad, to keep it chilled and deaden a lot of that acoustic noise that we've already seen what it looks like in the plume. Absolutely gorgeous day, really accentuated by this shot. Blue sky in the background. Goes great with the white exhaust plume coming out there. And you can see a lot of splashing and stuff jetting out from all different directions at the bottom. You'll see more of that in the shots that are coming up. This shot is going to be the first of a bunch of different views as we march counterclockwise around the pad to look at it from different angles. And there you can see the boosters have fired, and you see it all coming out the other side of the flame trench. And beautiful shot of it coming off the pad.
And the lighting at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on this late spring day is just about perfect from this camera view. Of course, it won't be perfect for all the views, but certainly is a nice angle and really illuminates the vehicle as well as the structure very nicely.
Yeah, I like when the vehicle leaves. I left a lot of these shots run long because I thought it was kind of neat to see what happens afterwards, and you can just see the whole service structure here being engulfed in steam and exhaust from the solid rocket motors.
Now, one interesting thing about this particular 35mm format is earlier we mentioned about the time code, and the iRig time code is burned in with an LED display, and on the 35mm format it's actually in part of the image area because the 35mm format has 4 sprockets per frame.